Ethan lived an ordinary life on Earth. He worked at a small repair shop in the city, fixing old machines and outdated computers. His apartment was simple, with cracked paint on the walls and a window that looked out to noisy streets below. Most nights he ate instant noodles and listened to the hum of air traffic flying over the city's skyline. He was not rich, not important, and he had no reason to believe his life would ever change. That was until the message arrived. It came in the form of a sealed envelope delivered by a man in a gray suit. Ethan almost thought it was a mistake because nobody ever sent him personal letters. The man didn't explain much. He only asked Ethan to sign a paper and then handed over the envelope. Ethan stared at the thick seal on the back, the strange golden mark pressed into the wax. It looked almost alien, though he had no way of knowing yet. When he opened it, his hands trembled. Inside was a formal letter written on expensive paper. At the top was the name of the law firm, one that he recognized from news feeds, firms that only represented the very wealthy. The letter began, "Mr. Ethan Cross, we regret to inform you of the passing of your uncle, Adrian Cross. You are listed." As the sole heir to his estate and holdings, Ethan almost dropped the paper. His uncle? He barely remembered the man. Adrian had visited once when Ethan was a boy, a tall figure in a sharp coat who smelled faintly of metal and ozone, as if he had walked through storms of another world. Family rumors said Adrian was eccentric, a traveler, a man who disappeared for years without contact. Nobody in the family expected him to leave anything behind, much less an estate. Ethan read further. The words grew more unbelievable with each line. The inheritance includes financial holdings, real estate, and secured assets off-world. To claim them, you must attend the reading of the will at the central estate, coordinates attached. Transportation will be provided. Failure to attend will result in forfeiture of all claims. Ethan blinked at the words off-world. At first he thought it was some kind of scam, but attached to the letter was an identification chip, glowing softly when he touched it. A small projection appeared, showing his name, face, and genetic code, verified by the United Planetary Registry. This was no scam. It was real. For the rest of the night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, staring out at the sky, wondering how his life could change so suddenly. He thought about the bills, stacked on his kitchen table, the broken fridge, the cracked shoes he still wore to work. If this inheritance was real, his life would never be the same. The next day, Ethan followed the instructions. The letter directed him to the nearest orbital terminal, where a ship waited under his name. He packed what little he owned into a single bag, some clothes, a photo of his parents, and a pocket toolkit he always carried. The shuttle was sleek and polished, nothing like the rusty transports he saw carrying cargo in and out of orbit. The crew treated him with strange respect, almost as if he were someone important. Ethan wasn't used to it. He sat quietly as the shuttle detached from Earth and rose into the black sky. As the planet shrank behind him, Ethan felt both fear and excitement. He had never left Earth before. He had dreamed about space when he was a child, staring at the stars, but he never thought he would actually travel among them. The ship entered faster than light travel, and Ethan pressed his face to the window, watching streaks of light bend across the void. It felt unreal, like stepping into one of the holofilms he had watched as a boy. The journey lasted only a few days, but Ethan's mind was restless the entire time. The crew never explained much, but he caught fragments of conversation. They spoke of Adrian Cross not just as a wealthy man, but as a powerful figure, someone who had been respected, even feared, in circles far beyond Earth. Words like diplomat and broker of peace floated around, though nobody dared explain details. Ethan wondered, what kind of life had his uncle lived, and why had none of the family ever known? When the shuttle finally slowed, Ethan looked out the window and gasped. The planet before him was unlike anything he had ever seen. Twin suns burned in the sky, one golden and one pale white, casting strange shadows across the surface. The world itself glimmered with oceans of silver-blue water, continents covered in strange glowing forests and mountains that pierced the clouds. Orbiting above was a massive ring station, its lights shining like a crown around the planet. "This is your destination," one of the crew said. "The estate of Adrian Cross." The shuttle descended toward the surface, passing through a sky filled with alien birds with wings like sails. Ethan pressed his hands against the window, his heart racing. This wasn't just wealth. This was another world entirely. The estate lay on a plateau surrounded by rivers and crystal towers. It was not a house but a palace, built with white stone and silver walls that reflected the light of both suns. Gardens stretched for miles, filled with plants Ethan couldn't name, glowing softly as if lit from within. Robotic sentinels stood, guard at the gates, their metallic forms towering above like statues. As Ethan stepped out of the shuttle, he felt small. Everything here seemed built for someone far greater than him. Inside, he was led to a grand hall where a council of officials waited. They were not all human. Some had blue skin, some had horns, and others bore strange markings across their foreheads. Ethan tried not to stare, but it was his first time seeing so many aliens in one place. At the center of the hall, a woman in a dark robe stood and spoke. "Ethan Cross. By bloodline, you are the sole heir to Adrian Cross's legacy. His estate, his assets, his responsibilities, and his agreements now fall to you." Ethan swallowed hard. Agreements? Responsibilities? The letter hadn't explained any of this. The woman handed him a data tablet. On its glowing surface were documents, contracts, treaties, and binding accords signed by Adrian himself. Ethan scrolled through, his eyes catching phrases like clan unity, peace pact, and honor through union. None of it made sense to him. Then another door opened. 2 figures stepped inside. Ethan froze. They were alien women, both tall and striking in their own way. The first, Amara, had sharp eyes and long, dark hair that shimmered like strands of obsidian. She moved with the confidence of a warrior, her armor gleaming under the twin lights. The second, Celine, had pale silver skin and gentle features, her robes flowing softly as she walked, her gaze quiet but piercing. They stopped in front of him. The councilwoman's voice echoed through the hall. "These are the daughters of the 2 clans your uncle united. By his final will, they are now entrusted to you. To honor his treaties, they stand as your companions, your guardians, and your wives." The words hit Ethan like a thunderclap. He stared at Amara and Celine, his mind spinning. He had come, expecting wealth, maybe a mansion, maybe credits. But this? 2 alien wives? Ethan's mouth went dry. His new life had only just begun. Ethan's heart pounded as the councilwoman's words echoed in the great hall. They stand as your companions, your guardians, and your wives. For a moment, he thought he had misheard. The silence in the hall was heavy, as though everyone waited to see how he would respond. Amara's sharp eyes narrowed at him, her posture proud and guarded, while Celine lowered her gaze slightly, almost shy, yet her expression carried a quiet strength. Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it again. How could he even begin to respond? He had come here thinking he would inherit wealth, perhaps land, credits, or even a fancy estate to return to Earth. Instead, he was being handed not only a palace but 2 alien women bound to him by treaties he did not understand. The councilwoman spoke again, her tone firm. "Your uncle was no ordinary man, Ethan Cross. He was a diplomat who brought peace to 2 powerful clans that had been at war for centuries. The union was sealed through an ancient custom, marriage alliances. To honor his work and preserve the peace, you must now continue what he began." Ethan swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. "But I'm not him. I'm just a mechanic from Earth. I don't know anything about ruling or keeping peace between alien clans." Murmurs spread among the council. Some alien leaders frowned, others whispered among themselves. Ethan felt small under their judging eyes. Amara suddenly stepped forward. Her voice was sharp, carrying authority. "If this is the one chosen by Adrian Cross's bloodline, then he must prove himself. We will not kneel to a weakling who hides behind excuses." Celine placed a gentle hand on Amara's arm, her silver eyes glancing at Ethan. "Do not rush to judge. Let us see what he is capable of." The councilwoman nodded. "You have much to learn, Ethan Cross. But your uncle believed humans possess qualities that make them unique leaders. You will have your chance to prove yourself. Until then, you will stay here at the estate guided by Amara and Celine." Ethan sighed, realizing he had no choice. The inheritance was more than wealth. It was responsibility, one he hadn't asked for but could not escape. That night, Ethan was shown to his quarters in the massive estate. The room was larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. A wide window looked out onto glowing gardens where strange flowers shimmered with faint light under the twin moons. The bed was soft, the air smelled of blossoms, and the silence was unlike anything he had ever known. But Ethan could not sleep. His mind kept circling back to Amara and Celine. Who were they, really? Were they forced into this as much as he was, or had they expected someone like him? As if answering his thoughts, a knock came at the door. "Enter," Ethan said hesitantly. The door opened, and Amara stepped inside. She wore a dark robe, but her posture was still strong, her expression sharp. She crossed her arms and looked at him with piercing eyes. "You look lost, human," she said bluntly. "Do not think that wealth and titles will protect you here. Many in the clans already question this arrangement. If you fail, they will not hesitate to tear you apart, and the treaty will collapse." Ethan frowned. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know my uncle was involved in such things. I just came because the letter told me I was his heir." Amara's gaze softened slightly, though her tone remained stern. "Then learn quickly. My clan respects strength. Show weakness, and you will lose everything." She turned and left before he could reply. Moments later, another soft knock came. This time, it was Celine. She entered quietly, her silver skin glowing faintly in the moonlight. Unlike Amara, she did not cross her arms or raise her chin. She simply looked at him with calm eyes. "I know this is difficult for you," she said, gently. "It is difficult for us as well. My clan values wisdom and patience, but even they doubt this arrangement. Still, I believe there may be a reason your uncle chose you." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "I don't know if I can live up to him. He sounds like a man who carried entire worlds on his shoulders. I'm just me." Celine gave a faint smile. "That may be why you were chosen. Sometimes a humble heart can do more than a powerful hand." Her words lingered in Ethan's mind long after she left. The next morning, Ethan was summoned to the training grounds of the estate. Amara stood waiting, dressed in her full warrior armor. She tossed him a practice staff made of polished wood. "If you are to survive here, you must learn to defend yourself," she said. "Your uncle was not just a diplomat. He was a fighter. He earned respect with both his words and his strength." Ethan caught the staff clumsily. He had no real combat training. But Amara wasted no time. She attacked him with swift movements, forcing him to defend himself. At first he stumbled and fell, earning a sharp scowl from her. "Pathetic," she muttered. "But at least you try. That is something." Day after day she trained him, her strikes fierce and relentless. Slowly Ethan began to improve. His arms ached, his body bruised, but he refused to quit. He remembered her words. My clan respects strength. If he was going to win her respect, he had to push himself. Meanwhile, Celine guided him in another way. She introduced him to the council chambers, teaching him the customs and traditions of her people. She showed him how to read the treaties, how to address alien leaders with proper respect, and how to listen carefully when others spoke. Words can be weapons sharper than blades, Celine said softly as they studied documents together. If you master them, you will not need to fight so often. Ethan began to see the balance between them, Amara's strength and Celine's wisdom, and he realized his uncle had not chosen these women randomly. They represented two halves of what was needed to keep peace between their clans. But trouble was never far. One evening, as Ethan walked through the estate gardens, he overheard two alien envoys speaking in hushed voices. "This human is unworthy," one said bitterly. "The treaty will collapse. When it does, we shall take what we desire by force." Ethan froze behind a pillar, his heart pounding. They were already plotting against him. The next day, he brought it up to Amara and Celine. "They doubt you," Amara said grimly, "and they will test you. If you fail, they will strike." Celine nodded. "But do not despair. If you can show them unity, show them that we stand together, they may begin to believe." Ethan clenched his fists. He had never wanted power, but now it was clear. His uncle's inheritance was not just riches. It was the burden of keeping peace. And if he failed, entire clans could return to war. That night, Ethan stood at the balcony of his chambers looking out at the glowing horizon of the alien world. The twin moons shone bright, and the wind carried the scent of flowers he still could not name. He thought of Earth, his tiny apartment, his simple meals, his quiet life. That world seemed so far, away now as if it belonged to another person. He was no longer just Ethan, the mechanic. He was Ethan Cross, heir to Adrian's legacy, bound by treaties and watched by entire civilizations. Behind him he heard footsteps. Amara and Celine stood together, watching him silently. For the first time, they seemed less like strangers and more like allies standing by his side. Amara crossed her arms, but her voice was softer. "Tomorrow the council will judge you in your first test. Be ready," Celine added quietly. "And remember, you are not alone." Ethan looked at them both. Fear twisted in his chest, but so did determination. He did not ask for this life. But now that it was his, he would not run from it. The morning sun rose high over the alien world, painting the sky with two colors, gold from one sun and pale silver from the other. Ethan stood in the council chamber, his palms sweating as alien leaders filled the hall. Their eyes watched him, with suspicion, some with open dislike. He could almost hear their thoughts. "This human is not worthy. He will fail." Beside him stood Amara, tall and steady in her armor, and Celine, calm in her flowing silver robes. They looked different, acted different, but both were here because of him. That thought gave Ethan strength, though his chest still felt tight. The councilwoman raised her voice. "Today we see if Adrian Cross's heir can hold what was given to him. Two clans still doubt this treaty. A dispute will be presented. The heir must resolve it." Ethan's throat went dry. He wasn't a diplomat. He wasn't trained in law or politics. Back on Earth, the biggest conflict he ever settled was over the last sandwich in the repair shop fridge. And now, he was supposed to stop alien clans from breaking into war. The dispute began. Two alien leaders stepped forward, both from different clans. One was tall and broad with scaled skin that shone green in the light. The other was slim with markings across his face that glowed faintly. The first spoke angrily. "Your uncle promised that our trade routes would remain open. But her clan," he pointed to the other leader, "has placed guards along the path, charging us unfair tolls." The second leader shouted back, "We guard because your people steal more than they pay. You call us thieves, but you are the thieves." The chamber erupted with shouting. Ethan felt panic rising. He glanced at Amara and Celine. Amara's face was stern, her jaw tight. Celine gave him a small nod, her calm eyes steady as if telling him, "Listen first, then speak." Ethan raised his hands. "Please let me understand." The leaders fell silent, surprised by his tone. Ethan asked questions, small, simple ones. "When did the guards appear? How much is the toll? What proof do you have of theft?" At first the leaders scoffed, but as he pressed gently, details came out. Soon Ethan realized both sides were partly right. One clan had lost goods, but the other clan had suffered from unfair charges. He thought about his uncle's journals, which Celine had shown him the night before. Adrian had written, "Peace is not found by taking one side, but by showing both sides they have more to gain together than apart." Ethan cleared his throat. "The problem is not trade or tolls. The problem is trust. So here is my proposal. Until the clans agree, goods will be escorted by neutral guards. From this estate, neither clan controls them. Both of you pay the same fair tax, and the estate will keep records open to all. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then whispers spread. Some leaders frowned, but others nodded slowly. The two rivals looked at each other, then at Ethan. It is fair, the scaled one said reluctantly. The marked one agreed. Yes, we will accept this, if your estate enforces it. Relief washed over Ethan. His knees felt weak, but he stood tall. The councilwoman turned to the others. You see, he is not Adrian Cross, but he carries his blood. Perhaps he can carry his wisdom as well. Amara gave Ethan a long look, for the first time her sharp eyes softened just a little. Celine's lips curved in a faint smile. Later, in the gardens, Ethan finally let out the breath he had been holding. His hands still shook. Amara walked beside him, silent at first. Finally, she said, "You did not fight. You did not shout. And yet, you won." Ethan laughed nervously. I was sure I was going to fail. I only asked questions until I saw what they both wanted. That is strength too, Amara admitted, though her voice was reluctant. Perhaps my clan will see it. Celine joined them, her silver eyes bright in the sunlight. You listened. That is rare. Many leaders speak first and listen last. You did the opposite. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe because I was too scared to speak right away. Celine shook her head. No. Fear did not guide you. Choice did. For the first time since his arrival, Ethan felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't completely unfit for this role. Days turned into weeks. Ethan trained with Amara every morning. She pushed him hard, striking with wooden staves until his arms burned. Again! She barked whenever he stumbled. He cursed under his breath, but he got back up each time. Slowly, his reflexes improved. He learned to block, to strike, to hold his ground. You are stubborn, Amara said one morning after he finally managed to disarm her in practice. She rubbed her wrist, then gave him the faintest smile. That I respect. In the afternoons, he studied with Selene. She guided him through history scrolls and council records. She tested him with questions. If one clan refuses to pay, what will you do? If a merchant breaks the treaty, who is responsible? Ethan answered clumsily at first, but she corrected him with patience. You are learning, she said one evening, as they sat by a fountain in the glowing gardens. Not quickly, but steadily, like water carving stone. He chuckled. That makes me sound stubborn again. Celine's smile was gentle. Stubbornness can build peace as well as break it. It depends on how you use it. But peace never lasted long. One night, alarms blared through the estate. Ethan rushed to the balcony and saw fire in the distance. One of the storage depots near the trade routes had exploded. Guards ran through the halls. Amara appeared in full armor, her sword drawn. Stay behind me, she shouted. Selene grabbed Ethan's arm, pulling him toward safety. This is sabotage. They want to make you look weak. Ethan's mind raced. If the clans believed he could not protect the estate, they would lose faith in him, and the treaty would collapse. He forced himself to think. Amara, take a squad and secure the gates. Selene, call the council immediately. They need to see that I am not hiding, that I am facing this with them. Both women stared at him, surprised by his sudden command. Then Amara gave a sharp nod. Finally, some steel in your voice. Selene touched his arm lightly. Be careful. They will test you tonight. Hours later, Ethan stood in the smoking ruins of the depot. The fire had been contained, but the damage was clear. Council envoys arrived, demanding answers. One shouted, Where were your guards? How can this estate protect the treaty if you cannot even protect your own stores? Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady, though his heart pounded. Our guards fought bravely. The saboteurs escaped, but we will find them. I will not hide behind excuses. I take full responsibility, the crowd murmured. Some expected him to deflect blame. Ethan continued louder. But understand this, the attack was not on me. It was on all of us. Whoever did this wants to see your clans at war again. If you lose faith in me, you give them what they want. If you stand with me, we will catch them together." The envoys fell silent. Then slowly, heads began to nod. Behind him, Amara stood like a shield, and Celine's calm voice added, "The estate will share all records of the attack. Nothing will be hidden. Let this be the proof of our unity." Ethan felt their support, like strength at his back. That night, after the council dispersed, Ethan sat in the quiet garden. Amara leaned against a pillar, polishing her blade. Celine sat beside him, the glow of the flowers reflecting in her eyes. "You spoke like a leader today," Celine said softly. Ethan shook his head. I was terrified. My voice was shaking the whole time. Amara smirked. "Fear does not matter. Action does. You acted. That is enough." For the first time, Ethan saw them not as strangers tied to him by his uncle's will, but as allies, who were beginning to trust him. And strangely, he realized he was beginning to trust them too. The three of them sat in silence under the twin moons, no longer divided by doubt, but connected by the first fragile threads of unity. Ethan knew more. Challenges were coming. But tonight, for the first time, he believed they might face them together. The estate was quiet after the explosion, but Ethan knew silence did not mean safety. Saboteurs had already proven they could strike. The real question was, who sent them? Ethan stood in the war room of the estate, surrounded by glowing maps and reports. Amara paced like a restless predator, her armor clinking softly as she moved. Celine sat at the table reading the latest intelligence, her calm face betraying little but her eyes sharp with thought. "The attack was meant to humiliate you," Amara said firmly. "Whoever did it wanted to show the clans you are weak." Ethan frowned. "But they failed. The council stood with us, at least for now. That means we still have a chance." Celine looked up from the reports. "A chance, yes, but not for long. If another attack comes, the clans will begin to doubt again. And doubt is poison. Once it spreads, it cannot be easily removed." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "So what do we do?" Amara slammed her fist on the table. "We hunt them, find the traitors, crush them, and make an example." Celine shook her head. "No. If we strike blindly, we risk blaming the wrong side. That will only reignite old hatred. We must be careful." Ethan listened to both, torn between their advice. He knew Amara's strength and Celine's wisdom balanced each other, but he also knew the final choice rested with him. Later that night, Ethan walked alone through the gardens. The twin moons shone above, casting silver and gold light across the glowing flowers. His mind swirled with doubts. He was just a man from Earth, a mechanic, not a leader. Yet now whole clans looked to him. As he walked, he remembered something. His uncle had written in his journal, "Leadership is not about being the strongest or the smartest. It is about standing firm when others waver." Ethan clenched his fists. He would not waver. The next day, the council gathered again. Word had spread quickly, too quickly. Rumors whispered through the hall. The saboteurs were hired by Clan X. No, it was Clan Y. The human is a pawn, he cannot protect us. Ethan stood before them, Amara on his right, Celine on his left. The alien leaders argued loudly until the councilwoman silenced them with a raised hand. "Ethan Cross, heir of Adrian, you must answer. Who is responsible for this treachery?" Every eye turned to him. Ethan's heart hammered. If he named the wrong clan, he could start the very war his uncle had worked to prevent. "I do not have proof yet," Ethan said, steady but honest. "But I promise you this. Whoever is responsible will be revealed. And when they are, they will face justice. Not from one clan, but from all of us together." Some leaders grumbled at his lack of answer, but others nodded, impressed by his fairness. Celine's voice followed gently. "The estate will share all evidence we gather. Nothing will be hidden. Only truth will guide us." Amara added sharply, "And if you think we are weak, test us. You will find we fight harder than you imagine. The chamber quieted. Ethan felt relief. For now, he had held them together. Days passed with constant tension. Amara doubled the patrols around the estate, drilling the guards day and night. Ethan joined her training, no longer the clumsy student he had once been. His strikes grew sharper, his balance steadier. Amara pushed him to his limits, but she also began to show something new. Trust. You are not a warrior yet, she told him one morning after sparring, her blade pressed to his shoulder. But you are no longer helpless either. My clan will respect that. Celine, meanwhile, worked with Ethan on strategy. She laid maps before him explaining trade routes, rival factions, and the delicate balance between them. Together they traced the patterns of recent attacks, searching for clues. See here, she said one evening, pointing at the map. The attacks happen near the same border. That border is watched by mercenaries who answer to no clan. Someone is paying them. Ethan leaned closer. So we follow the money. Celine nodded. Yes, that is where truth always hides. The breakthrough came sooner than expected. A captured saboteur confessed under questioning, not to Amara's blade but to Celine's quiet words. They were hired, Celine explained later in the council chamber. Paid by a faction that seeks war, not peace. They hoped to make Ethan appear weak so the clans would tear the treaty apart. The revelation sent a stir through the hall. Ethan stepped forward. Then we know the truth. The enemy is not one clan or the other. It is those who want to see all of you return to war, and I will not allow that. This time, his words carried more weight. He was no longer just a nervous human. He was beginning to sound like a leader, but the enemy was not finished. A week later, a fleet appeared at the edge of the system, ships bearing no clan markings, heavily armed, moving toward the trade routes. The estate alarms blared as scouts reported the fleet's advance. They will demand the treaty's end, Amara growled. If we do not stop them, they will attack. Celine's face was calm but grave. The council will panic. Some may even surrender to avoid war. Ethan felt the weight of destiny pressing on his shoulders. This was the test his uncle had prepared him for, whether he knew it or not. He stood tall. Then we will not panic. We will stand together. Amara raised an eyebrow. You sound ready to fight? I am, Ethan said, though fear twisted inside him. But not alone. We'll face them as one. Celine nodded approvingly. Then let us prepare. The council gathered in emergency session. Alien leaders shouted, some demanding immediate surrender, others calling for war. Chaos threatened to tear the chamber apart. Ethan stood, raising his voice above the noise. Enough! You all fear this fleet because you think you stand alone. But you are not alone. You have each other, and you have me. The hall fell silent. Ethan continued, his voice steady. My uncle believed humans had a gift. Not strength, not wisdom, but unity. We see what others ignore. We bring sides together. That is why he chose me. That is why I am here. If you break now, the fleet wins, without firing a single shot. But if you stand together, we can stop them. Amara stepped forward, her sword raised high. My clan will not run. We fight with him. Celine's calm voice followed. And mine will not be blinded by fear. We will stand. One by one, the alien leaders nodded. The council chamber filled with new resolve. That night, Ethan stood on the balcony of the estate. The fleet still loomed at the edge of the system. But now the clans were united, preparing for battle. Amara stood beside him, her armor gleaming under the twin moons. Celine stood on his other side, her silver eyes glowing softly in the dark. You did well today, Celine said quietly. Ethan gave a weary smile. I don't know. I just spoke what I felt. Amara smirked. Sometimes, that is enough to move armies. For the first time, Ethan felt a strange sense of belonging. These two women, once strangers forced upon him, were no longer just part of a treaty. They were his allies, his partners, and maybe even something more. He looked at the horizon where the enemy fleet's lights glimmered like distant stars. The greatest test was yet to come. But now, for the first time, Ethan believed they could face it. Together. The night before the confrontation, the estate was restless. Guards patrolled every corner and the council chambers glowed with maps of the skies. Outside, the stars glittered, and among them loomed the enemy fleet, a wall of steel and fire, waiting to descend. Ethan stood at the balcony again, looking at the lights. His heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. He could not show fear, not when the clans depended on him. Behind him, he heard the sound of armor. Amara's heavy footsteps. "You should sleep," she said, though her tone was softer than usual. "Tomorrow will test us all." Ethan shook his head. "I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see those ships. I hear their weapons." Amara stepped closer. For once, there was no scorn in her eyes. "Fear is normal. But tomorrow you must not let it rule you. Lead us as you did in the council. If you do that, we will fight without hesitation." A moment later, Celine joined them. She carried no weapons, only her calm presence. She stood between them, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. "War is not always won with strength," Celine said gently. "Sometimes it is won with words. Perhaps tomorrow, there will still be a chance to stop bloodshed." Ethan nodded. He knew both of them were right. He would need Amara's strength and Celine's wisdom. Together they gave him courage. The next morning, the council gathered for the final decision. Alien leaders argued fiercely. Some demanded to fight, others urged surrender. The tension was so thick that even the air felt heavy. Ethan raised his voice. "We will not surrender, but we will not rush blindly into war either. First, we face them. If they want the treaty broken, let them say it to our faces." The councilwoman, who had always been the firm guardian of tradition, studied him closely. Then she gave a single nod. "So be it. You will speak for us." The decision was made. Hours later, a delegation prepared to meet the enemy fleet. Ethan, Amara, and Celine boarded a sleek diplomatic shuttle, accompanied by a small escort of guards. As they left the safety of the planet, Ethan stared at the approaching fleet. The ships were massive, lined with weapons, their hulls dark as if carved from shadows. Inside the enemy's command ship, the atmosphere was tense. The leader who greeted them was tall, clad in black armor, his face hidden behind a mask of steel. His voice echoed through the chamber, cold and commanding. "You are the human who dares claim Adrian Cross's legacy," the masked leader said. "You are unworthy. End the treaty now, or we will destroy your estate and burn your clans to ashes." Ethan's heart pounded, but he stood tall. "No, the treaty will stand." The masked leader laughed, a harsh sound. "You are nothing. Adrian Cross earned respect. You have earned nothing." Amara stepped forward, her voice sharp as a blade. "He has earned my respect. And that is enough," Celine added softly but firmly, "and mine. You cannot break what has already begun to unite." The masked leader's tone grew darker. "Then you choose death." Ethan forced himself to meet the cold gaze behind the mask. "No, I choose peace. But if you force war, then know this. You will not face one clan. You will face all of us, united." He gestured to the council delegates standing behind him. For once, rivals stood side by side. Scaled warriors, marked diplomats, and countless others. All stood together, bound by Ethan's words. The masked leader hesitated. For the first time, Ethan sensed doubt, but the enemy was not finished. The fleet began to move, weapons powering up. The threat was real. If Ethan failed now, the skies would rain fire. Ethan thought quickly. Fighting them directly would be suicide. But there was another way. He remembered Celine's words. Sometimes war is won with words. He remembered Amara's training. Stand firm even when fear consumes you. He raised his voice again. You think Adrian Cross is gone? But look at me. His blood flows in me, his legacy lives in me. You want to destroy me because you fear what unity can do. But know this, you cannot kill unity. Even if you destroy me, others will rise. The clans will rise, and you will fail. His words echoed across the chamber, carried through the translators. The alien delegates behind him struck their staffs against the floor in agreement. Amara raised her sword high and Celine bowed her head, eyes shining with quiet strength. The masked leader's hands clenched, his voice faltering for the first time. You are just a human. Ethan took a step forward. Yes, and that is why I will succeed. Because I have no clan, no ancient hatred, no thirst for power. I only want peace. And that makes me stronger than you. Silence filled the chamber. For a long moment, the leader did not reply. Then, slowly, he lowered his hand. The fleet outside powered down its weapons. You speak well, human, the leader said at last. Perhaps too well. Very well. We will withdraw, for now, but do not believe this is the end. Ethan exhaled, relief flooding through him. The immediate danger was gone. They had survived. When the delegation returned to the estate, the council chamber erupted with applause. Leaders who once doubted him now bowed their heads in respect. The councilwoman declared, Ethan Cross has proven himself, not with blood, but with courage. The treaty stands stronger than ever. Ethan felt dizzy with relief. He had faced the greatest test and won. That evening, Ethan stood once again on the balcony, looking at the horizon. For the first time, the world seemed calmer, as if the land itself had taken a deep breath of peace. Amara joined him, her armor set aside, her sharp eyes softer than he had ever seen. You stood like a warrior today, she said. Not with a blade, but with your voice. My clan will follow you now. Celine stepped beside him, her silver robes flowing in the breeze. And you spoke with truth. My clan will trust you, perhaps more than they trusted your uncle. Ethan looked at both of them, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. These two women, once strangers forced upon him, were now his partners, his allies, and perhaps something even deeper. He smiled faintly. I thought I was inheriting fortune, but what I really inherited was responsibility. And both of you. Amara smirked. Do not think we will go easy on you just because you impressed us. Celine's eyes shone softly. But know that we stand with you. Always. Together, the three of them looked out at the alien world, its glowing forests stretching endlessly beneath the twin suns. The future was uncertain, but Ethan no longer felt afraid. He had come as a mechanic from Earth, unprepared and unsure. Now he stood as a leader, trusted by clans, bound by treaties, and strengthened by two companions who had become far more than symbols of an agreement. Ethan whispered to himself, almost in disbelief, Uncle Adrian, maybe you knew what you were doing after all. The stars above shimmered as if the universe itself answered him.